I've been, I the last few days, well, technically speaking, the last probably 25 years of my life, I've been wore out. It seems like more and more every day. And yesterday I spent a lot of, I wasn't sick or anything, at least not physically. I was just wore out. I was tired. And I ended up spending a lot of time in bed. And one of the experiences that I had was I was carrying a pillow. I was walking right through traffic. I mean, there was cars everywhere, and I was walking right down the middle of probably a 4 or 5 lane road, and there was cars all over the place. And I had a pillow tucked under my left arm. And so I keep walking, and before long I'm to the beach, and to my left is a kind of a river going to the ocean, and it's quite a ways down. It's almost like I was on a cliff, and the river was way down there. And what I noticed is that there were people, crowds and crowds of people on both sides of this cliff and the river, and some people were jumping off the cliff into the water, and uh, without really realizing it, it was just poof. I was on the other side of the river, and I still had my pillow, and there were huge crowds of people, and they were taking turns jumping off into this kind of water that was flowing into the ocean. And there was a group. One group had like a inflatable raft, like you'd see people whitewater rafting, and there's probably 10 people holding on to it, and they were all laughing and carrying on, and they each had a hand on it, like they were carrying like they were pallbearers for a casket. They all had a hand on it, and they just took off running and jumped. And it didn't turn out good for them. It really didn't. They all got basically knocked out, and some of them almost drowned. But before I knew it, I had the opportunity to take a jump off that cliff, and I didn't do it. So it's these experiences can be all fun and games and everything, but when you're facing a decision somewhere down the road that you made where you don't take the jump, it kind of sucks. So I didn't do it, and I don't know why. So that's another part of it. That's kind of difficult, and I don't want to add to myself a psychological position where I'm beating myself up, because that's just going to make it worse. So anyhow, that's what I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. That's good. The pillow represents, it's like we use a pillow to go to sleep. It represents your comfort zone, which is fine. In other words, this is our comfort spot, and you went to that spot, you see, and you're seeing all these people. These are the people that are coming in, the river flowing to the ocean. And it's interesting, though, the people with the raft, the blow-up raft or whatever, is an idea, isn't it? And you see all these people hanging on to it. In other words, this is an idea that they're hanging on. It can be like a group of people. They're with, the scientific community as an idea. This is their idea that they've created, and they're trying to move into a better position of understanding with the idea that they've created. So again, when you saw them with the raft, thinking that their idea is going to help them, it's like, oh, okay, we'll just take a raft down there. We won't do it by ourselves. We'll just take the raft and giggle along, and you see what happens. These ideas don't work because it's an individual affair. You do this individually. And again, jumping off the cliff, taking the risk. Well, we don't always feel like doing that every moment. I don't always feel like doing it. I don't always feel like taking the risk. And so when I say take the risk every moment, I don't mean you do it every moment. Some days you are tired and worn out. It's like, you know what? I just want to do nothing. And it's okay. You need to rest. That's what the pill is about, too. You just want to kind of take a rest. And at times you do. But you still have the focus. That's okay. You've done a lot. We all do. I'm tired most of the time. I'm dragging myself around, especially with this heat here, physically. But the real you is still doing it. That's just that personal part of yourself. And sometimes I don't feel like going surfing. I don't feel like doing a lot of things. Or I'm sitting here with Ava. I don't feel like creating another group. It's like I don't want to do it. You know, there's a lot of stuff out there. But then all of a sudden the next moment or the next day or it's a couple days. And some days I sleep a lot because I'm so worn out from what I do. And it's all okay. Yes, we don't beat ourselves up. You just be now. You just be realistically now. And sometimes it's like that. And Paul would take vacations. We all take vacations. We do certain things. But we still have that focus and that adventure. So, you know, just like James Bond or a policeman, even off duty, you're still that individual, aren't you? Yes, you still are. So it's not about that. I see what you've done and many others is incredible. And these experiences like this show up. I would say the basic idea of this experience is not really you so much, but the view, seeing how many people are willing to take the leap, you see? That's really the view that I see with this experience. Yeah.
That does make sense, because there was there was this one guy. He dead sprint, got to the edge and just flew off, and it looked like he was trying to do like a flip in the air and kind of land like a cliff diver does, like actually land, with this like a hands in the water. Well, he landed on his back. It just didn't turn out well for him. It was a long ways down. So,
well, actually, that's good. I've had many experiences. When you're on your back on the ground, that shows you're grounded. Where the boys were holding him down on his back, they wanted him to be grounded because he's a wild kid, and we all are when we're young. And that's okay. He landed on his back, which is not what we think. That's like a belly flop. That's worse. But on your back, it's okay. But that, I would say, that shows the individual is grounded. So he did this to land on his back. But yeah, some people, they're ready to do this, and that's what I see your experience demonstrates, because I've been there many times on the real side. I see the thousands and hundreds of thousands of people that are just longing to come in. I would see them running in huge bunches and then up all these steps, okay, and I'd be standing on the top of the steps and they'd be running up to these steps. There'd be 50 steps or so. These are the steps that we've created for them to go through, you see, and to finally get there. Then they're waiting there to go into the next position, you see. And as we create these positions, it's possible for them. That's why, as I'm creating these groups, as an example, as one of many examples, and what you people are doing too, you see the people coming up. All of a sudden, they want to get in these groups. They know that there's something else, but it doesn't mean they recognize it yet. They're going through the process and the steps, and what you're seeing is the end result. They're reaching the point where they're going to take the leap, and they're jumping into the ocean, you see. So first it's from the river, but all rivers basically, basic ideas, it goes into the ocean, doesn't it? And a lot of people live near streams and rivers, but eventually it all leads to the ocean of life itself. And that's what you're seeing, yes. And you're just a spectator. You're fine.
Yeah. And I had many other experiences, and one was involved more battling. It's been a while since I've been in a firefight on the real side, but this one was pretty intense. It was at night, completely dark. I couldn't even see the enemy, but we were shooting pop rocks or something back at each other. It wasn't a real weapon, just like lobbing ideas back and forth type thing. But I got involved with somebody that I used to know back, that I actually was in the Marine Corps with, in the experience, and then he took me to somebody that was in charge, and it was basically a guard shack, and the guy that was on duty, I couldn't see any rank and I didn't know who he was, so I just kind of assumed and made the reference to him either being a sergeant or a staff sergeant, which would make sense because those guys are usually in charge of guard duty. It's usually not anybody above a staff sergeant. So he said something. He corrected me on that. And I don't remember what he said, but he asked me what I was doing there, and I said, "Well, you're infiltrated. You've got an infiltrator. Somebody has gotten into your ranks." Well, that really got his attention, but not enough, because he went back to playing. He had an Xbox or some sort of a video game there. He just went back to playing his video games. But I got put onto a bus, and now I'm still working with Marines. There are about a half a dozen Marines on this bus, and I'm actually in the very front of them, kind of like I was doing a presentation, like I was next to the driver. Sometimes like teachers would do that on a field trip. They'd stand next to the driver. Well, that's where I was at. And here we are. We're moving. We're going somewhere. I can't see behind me. I don't know where we're driving to, but I can see where we're going by. And there is a huge building. I mean, like a Fort Knox type building. And I recognized it right away that it was a British outpost or something like that. So the Brits owned it, or they were there, and they were letting off fireworks and explosions and blowing the place up or doing whatever they were doing. And I was trying to get these Marines' attention. I said, "Do you see that over there? Those are the Brits doing that, and we're supposedly, allies, right? The U.S. and the England are supposed to be allies, but here they are in America blowing stuff up." And so that got their attention, and they actually welcomed me into their little group. And I sat down in the middle of them, and that's the end of that experience. But these things are real. These things are really happening. Just like in the Revolutionary War, in the history books, they tell us that it was England that was invading us, but those, for the most part, at the beginning of the war, those were not even English soldiers. They were mercenaries. They were Hessians. They were people who were in it for the money. And this is verified. Okay, stories like Sleepy Hollow, right? The Headless Horseman. He was a Hessian. He was a Hessian soldier, and so they were here as mercenaries, wearing English uniforms to make it look like the English were attacking and all this. So it's just this huge mess, all orchestrated by the Rothschilds and these other big banker families to make it look one way, and this is what most Americans have carried on with them for so long. So for me to be in this small group of Marines, which is apparent, right? They're paying attention. They're seeing that their leaders are not who they say they are. So, but yeah, that's it. That's that one.
That's wonderful. These are people that that have stepped up. Again, they've joined the service, and you're teaching on the real side, and they will, eventually show up here. But they're seeing what's really going on the real side. They're willing to see what's taking place. And yes, on the real side, it's like, oh, those are the Brits or whatever. And we know because we see through the curtain what's going on. But those that just look at the surface world, they see the written history that's been slanted and distorted, but we see what's really taking place. And that's excellent, yes. How you've defined that, and more people are waking up to this right now. So this is where the dark side has to be even more creative. They still feel they have control, and they do, because, again, it's like Paul would talk about, you can get rid of, supposedly, you can sidestep the idea of things, but it's the emotional attachment that's the hardest to get rid of. In other words, a person can stop smoking, as an example, but they still have the urge, you see? And so that doesn't get rid of it. So they still have the urge to do it. And just like relationships, you may divorce the person, but you still have the emotional attachment. And that's what's really to be looked at, is the emotional attachment to things. And so as people are willing to take a look, in other words, they see what's going on, but they will still say, well, gee, I still love the president. He's a great guy or whatever. Even though they know that he's destroying the world, they'll just say, well, I still love him, because that's the emotional attachment. And this is to where we're providing this information about what's going on in the world, and herring, joning, whatever, but people say, well, I love the Mahanta. They're really looking at their own emotional attachment. They're not really looking at what's really taking place. And so for people to see that and wake up to that, yeah, that's huge. And so, one of the boys, myself or Rebazar or whatever's driving the bus, yes, you're the instructor. These are the people that you're bringing through. These are the enlisted men, etc. And you're instructing them, you see, and you're looking backwards. You're looking basically at what has taken place. You're using this as a reference. You see, the driver's looking forward. You're showing people, what's already taken place as a reference, so that eventually, and they're looking forward too, which is interesting, but they don't know where they're going, you see. So they're listening to you, and they're seeing what's happening along the way. In other words, they're seeing what has taken place, and this is what you're showing them in the experience. And that's you, and this is part of your adventure. But everybody's on the same bus, aren't they? So you're okay. But, this becomes your adventure too, to teach others, and these people will start to show up in your life. From all of those that you're teaching, maybe might be 20 or 30 or 50 in the bus. Probably only 1 or 2 are going to make it through.
Yeah, I realize that.
Yeah, and you see it yourself with all the soldiers that you were with. And, when you go out and combat, and the battlefield is a very good definition of who does and who doesn't make it through. And so this is where, it's amazing where some people make it through things and simple situations where others don't. Because you know why? They don't have the right attitude. It's not that, you can almost walk out there on the battlefield. You don't have to hide in the trenches. And if you have the right attitude, you'll make it through. You see? But people will say, oh, gee, God was on his side. He was a religious man or whatever. All these ideas. But no, it's really more than that. You see? If you're to make it through, you're going to make it through. I kind of like that scene in Tombstone. With Kurt Russell, where at some point he's battling the bad guys, and all of a sudden he just gets up, walks right out there, and starts shooting everybody, and doesn't get shot. Again, this could have happened or not, but the idea is that, and all the bad guys are going, oh well, look at this. Okay, there he is. Let's get him. Well, no matter how many bullets they shoot, they can't get him. This is just how things are. If you're to make it, you're to make it. And this is the interesting thing about Paul's position when he was here. He was to leave because the door was open for the adventure of Darwin and Harold to come through to provide the biggest wake-up call ever. And this is what people don't see either. So yes, you're going through the process. And again, like all the people that I have taught, I constantly refer to this, and especially with Ava, as she's learning to, more so understand this, and she has a huge hurdle, like many of you do, because it's 2 languages. And as she makes her way, it's wonderful, simply because, and she's very focused, because they have a huge hurdle. They have the language barrier, so they have to try and define this accordingly as to the original creation of English. And this is huge for them, yes. And I really take the time with these people because it's huge for them. And but as they have the focus, this becomes their heart, and this is why they have the experiences they do, because they have wonderful hearts. They stick to this, and so those people again that you're teaching, and like I've seen it myself since 1970 when I went out there the first year and did public lectures. Of all the people that have come and gone, and especially in 2001 when I took the position, and we were having phenomenal experiences like this. The class was, I just listened to them, especially with Harold and Joni, all kinds of experiences. And to this day, since 2003, I have not seen any of these people. I've seen some of them on the real side, and they're not doing good because they didn't keep up. And they just figure, well, I'm the crazy guy. Okay, whatever. They figured that I was like Darwin. I did this or that. But I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything like they did. But yet they consider that. So they've kept themselves back. But yes, as we present to the world what we do, those very few that make it through, and the right people will come through. But you know what? When that individual is ready, they're going to show up. And it's funny how it is, and we consider it to be this or that. And we, as I talked to Eva many times, and I said, well, look at the group and all these people that are showing up. But I tell her, I say, well, just watch to see who continues and makes it through. This becomes the bigger picture. And that is that life continues on, and very, very few people do make it through. Because most people, again, they will go back to their personal life. Their personal life comes first. So again, we do take care of things here, but what does come first? And that is your intent. You decide that, and life already knows. And you've already decided. Life didn't decide it. It's not the situations that occur that decide it. I had a family. I had all this. I continued on my journey because I saw that they didn't want to. And they wanted me to stay there with them. They really did. But I wouldn't do it.
This planet Earth needs a lot of help from all of us right now. Dean Val of NUUU, Nations United, UNUversal, UNUversity, is contacting people around this world every day to share the importance of the all-natural environment supporting all of us. Dean Val and Duane Lee Heppner.org 501c3 have created CAN, Community Action Network, to help all communities become aware of how to be self-sufficient with permaculture and food and rainforests. We are always looking for real people to step up who want to learn what life on this earth is all about. We will be leasing large portions of land to create something wonderful for all communities everywhere. Contact Val Vittles on Skype and Facebook, and through the phone number and the website DuaneTheGreatWriter.net provided in the links, to get involved with what we all can do now. The NUUU, Nations United UNUversal UNUversity, is dedicated to supporting and providing a real purpose and real awareness with the all-natural environment supporting all of us. First comes this earth, with food and rainforests, and to protect what is still here. For those who have the awareness to see what is actually taking place here, with all the natural devastation, which is also purposely planned by WorldKontrollers, you now have a real opportunity to step up and do something with those who also care about your planet Earth. Duane Lee Heppner has created the NUUU, Nations United UNUversal UNUversity, which completely entails the all-natural environment everywhere, and a real education that has real value, and that far surpasses any commonly created indoctrinating educational system that does not focus on what sustains all of us naturally. Real survival makes sense with everything here that is self-sustaining.